All right, Shalom. This gonna have to be a part two, Salakia. All praises to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Um, I was saying Ruth. Another example, okay, would be Ruth of a man of Israel who dealt with a woman of another nation, and Ruth is actually a woman who buried seed in the lineage of Yahushai. And she was a Moabite. Ruth was a Moabite. Moses dealt with the Ethiopian woman, and like I said at the end of the part one, the Lord smote Miriam with leprosy for speaking on that matter, for speaking on a man of Israel dealing with a heathen woman. So you women really should keep quiet on the topic. And double honor surpassing Elder's Great Millstone. Like I said, this is a part two though. Okay. So the point of this lesson is you can deal with a woman of another nation and be pro-black. Because who was more pro-black than Moses? Matter of fact, let me get this. Hebrews chapter 11. Who was more pro-black than Moses, man? Moses was for his people. Let my people go. He delivered that message. He stood up for the nation of Israel. Matter of fact, he killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. Let me get that. This is let me see. I've typed buried. So I can bear with me. Exodus chapter 2, verse 11. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. See, Moses recognized, he understood that it was a difference between him and Pharaoh. It was a difference between him and the people that raised him. He understood and he could see that he was actually one of the people that his family, Pharaoh, was oppressing. Those were his brethren that were in slavery. Moses had the mind. Moses was pro-Israelite. He was pro so-called black. He was for his people. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting in Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way. And when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. You see? So Moses was for his people for sure. Let's get another one. But he dealt with an Ethiopian woman. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23. It says, by faith Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because they saw he was a proper child and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of the Most High, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Seminole Native American Indians, the 12 tribes of Israel, as well as our people are the Israelite foreigners that look like the other nations, but their seed goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, man. It says here in Hebrews 11 and 25, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of the Most High, which means if you're an Israelite foreigner that look like the other nations, your spirit is going to kind of align with the spirit of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. It says choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of the Most High than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. So Moses chose to be with his people. He rather suffer with his people than to enjoy the pleasures of being king of Egypt. It says, esteeming the reproach of Hamashiach greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. So Moses knew that there was a reward for following Yahweh Shem Yahushai. It says, by faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. Through faith, he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he destroyed the firstborn, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them. By faith, they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, which the Egyptians, as saying do, were drowned. As saying to do, were drowned, Salakia. So Moses was pro-black. Then you got to deal with King Solomon, because his son Rehoboam was born to a Ammonite woman, a Japanese woman. This is First Kings. And who? Come on, you gonna tell me King Solomon wasn't pro-Israelite? King Solomon wasn't pro-black, so-called black, because black is a curse, you know. To be black, which means to be malicious, wicked, without light, void of light. That's what the word black means. So that's nothing biblically, biblically fruitful to be called black. Nothing about that is. 1 Kings 14:21, it says, and Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua did choose out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. So Rehoboam, one of Solomon's wives. Now it said, the scriptures do say Solomon loved many strange women. And I'm going to get into Nehemiah the 13th chapter, because that's the main reason why Jake is under the impression that you're not supposed to be dealing with the women of other nations at all. But if that was the case, then why can I give you 5 examples of men that dealt with righteous men that dealt with heathen women? You know, and their stories are written. You know, their history is written. Why can I tell you? Why do I have the example of Jacob? Okay, you wouldn't have the 12 tribes without heathen women. Okay, and the Israelite hates to hear that. Okay, because Jacob had 2 concubines that were not of the nation of Israel. Then you had Abraham. Abraham married Hagar, or had a concubine named Hagar, who is an Egyptian. You may say, well, his wife was barren. Well, so what? Dr. Umar Johnson said, when you get with a woman, it's by, what do you say, focus and opportunity. You focus on opportunity. You're focused on getting that nation woman. If you focused on getting a black woman, you would get the black man. This guy is fake deep, because like we said, it all goes according to the seed of the father. So that kills the whole argument right there. We don't need the so-called black woman to bring back the nation, as the beloved elder King Masha said. We don't need the so-called black woman. Oh, it was either King Masha, High Priest Ariel, Salagi, I forget. But they said we don't need the so-called black one, which is true. We don't need the so-called black or Hispanic or Native American woman to bring back the nation. Okay, just because you the seed doesn't change just because you switch the soil. Let's go to this word Ammonitis. It says Ammonitis. The word is Amawan Yath. Amawan Yath. It says a woman of Ammon. Ammonitis. So one of Solomon's wives was an Ammonite. And what was Solomon's sin? Solomon's sin was that his wives turned away his heart, okay, in his old age. In the kingdom, are we going to have to worry about wine and woman making a man of understanding to fall away? No, we're not. We're all going to know the Lord, and we're always going to know the Lord. We're always going to walk in the ways of the Lord. So we're going to deal with the women of the other nations again, and it's going to be in perfection, and we're never going to go off like Solomon once did. So this is the issue that Jake has. This is where Jake gets tripped up, and these are stumbling blocks that are put in place, you know, by Yahweh Shemiel Shah intentionally, okay, to cause some to not get the full understanding of the scriptures. Okay, this is Nehemiah 13 verse 23. It says, in those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. And keep that in mind. The nations that the women are marrying here in Nehemiah 13th chapter are Moab, Ammon, and of Ashdod, right? Which though none of those three nations are listed in Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 3, okay, where it lists the Canaanite nations, the Hamite nations that the Lord doesn't want us to marry and give our sons in marriage. It lists Hamitic nations. It doesn't list Moab, Ammon, and Ashdod. Okay, but at the same time, Nehemiah, what is he doing here? He's giving an exhortation. Okay, Nehemiah was around during the building of the wall, okay, of the temple. Okay, he rebuilt the wall. So he's giving an exhortation to these men who are falling into sin because of their women. Okay, and like I said, Solomon's sin was that in his old age, his wives turned away his mind. Your mind gets weaker in your old age, but I'm not saying that's an excuse. But I'm saying that Solomon was turned away in his old age. Okay? By his what? By his wives. And he did marry Solomon did marry some of the nations, the Hamitic nations that the Lord told us not to marry in Deuteronomy 7 and 3. But there was a specific nation that Yahweh Shemel Shah listed in Deuteronomy 7 and 3. He didn't list all of the nations, all of the other 17 nations. If that's what it was, Yahweh Shemel Shah would have listed every nation in Deuteronomy the 7th chapter. But he didn't. So Nehemiah is giving an exhortation. The Apostle Paul said, I got thee by guile. There are certain things that Apostle Paul said was fulfilled back then, but they weren't actually fully fulfilled. Okay, because the men of the Lord, they don't always speak in the present. They prophesy. So it says, in those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. And the children spake in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. So the issue was that the children were not being raised up in the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Shemel Shah. They barely could even speak Hebrew. They were being raised by the mothers, and they were spending so much time with the mothers that they weren't getting their heritage. So they were becoming like they were raising the children like Gentiles almost. That's what the error was. The error was not that they was dealing with them women. They could deal with them women. You're not supposed to fall in love with them. You're not supposed to fall in love with a heathen woman the way you would with an Israelite woman. She's supposed to be on a concubine status, which is a lesser wife, right? A second class wife, so to speak. Okay? And that's what their error was, because they weren't treating them like second class wives, but rather they was giving them complete dominion over their children, over their sons. It says in Nehemiah 13 and 24, and that was the error, because now you're raising your sons up in error, okay, and eventually you're going to be caught up in error, because you're giving this woman too much power. It said, give not thy strength unto woman, neither that which destroy the ways of kings. You know, it says, give not thy mother, thy father, thy children, roughly paraphrasing, power over thee, as long as thou liveth, nor to place. Matter of fact, let me see if I can get that one, because it talks about let's see. Sirach, this is Sirach chapter 33 verse 19. Give not thy son and wife, thy brother and friend, power over thee while thou livest, and give not thy goods to another, lest they repent thee and thou entreat for the same again. So it say don't give them power over thee. You know, it says verse 21, I'm gonna skip to verse 21. It says, for it is better that thy children should seek to thee. Who? The Israelite man. then that thou shouldest stand to their courtesy. So your children supposed to be serving you, not you serving your children. Oh, baby girl, what you want? What can I do for you today, baby girl, princess? You need some money. Every time you see your daughter, you give her $100. Like, nah. Don't get me wrong. You gonna make sure she's good, but nah. That's called coddling. You're not supposed to coddle the child. They're going to lead you into heaviness. It says, Nehemiah 13, verse 25. It says, and I contended with them and cursed them and smote certain of them and plucked off their hair and made them swear by God, saying, ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons, or for yourselves. Right? So now Nehemiah is quoting Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 3. Seemingly, he's paraphrasing Deuteronomy 7 and 3. But as I stated earlier, none of the three nations that these Israelites are marrying are listed in Deuteronomy 7 and 3. But it's an exhortation. So you can, we do that. We quote scriptures, and we might not quote the scripture and use it in the exact context that it was used in the scriptures, but we're using it in a different context, but that different context still applies. Brothers that have the spirit, he that have ears to hear, let them hear. They know what I'm trying to say, So it says, so Nehemiah is exhorting them by quoting the scriptures, okay, so that they can correct the error of their way, even though that scripture is not talking about those nations of people. It says in verse 26, did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these? So now he's referring to the history of Solomon. Okay. It says, did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these? Yet among many nations there was no king like him, who was beloved of his power. And the Most High made him king over all Israel. Now, when Solomon married the Ammonitess woman, why didn't Yahweh Shemiah Shai send a prophet to Solomon and say, you done pissed me off, you done married an Ammonite woman, and now you done gave her son, your son, Rehoboam, the throne, you done made me mad. Why didn't the Lord send a prophet to Solomon to say that? Well, that was Salaki. That was after, I believe Solomon was already dead. No, he wasn't, because what I'm referring to is, I'm not referring to when the scripture in 1 Kings 14 where it talks about Rehoboam taking the throne. At that time, I believe Solomon was already passed once Rehoboam had took the throne. I'm referring to when Solomon first had the child with the Ammonitess woman when he was alive. Why didn't the Lord send a prophet to Solomon then? When he was alive and he just laid down with this Ammonite woman, and they just conceived this son. Why didn't the Lord send a prophet against Solomon then? That's not why the Lord was angry with Solomon. He got angry because he fell away in his old age, okay? And he built altars, okay, for his wives that he didn't keep on the status of a concubine, okay? These heathen women, he didn't keep them on the status of a concubine. He fell in love with many of them. And that's why we ain't supposed to be falling in love out here. You're not supposed to be head over heels for a woman, because now you're going to do things that are against Yahweh Shemiah Shai to please her. And that's exactly what was going on here in Nehemiah 13th chapter. These men was falling in love with these fine-ass Ammonite and Moabite women, and they was causing their children to not be raised up in the way of the Jews, to speak the Jews' language. It says, verse 26, did not King Solomon sin by these? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of the Most High. And the Most High made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. You see? And that was it. The women caused him to sin. The sin was not that he got with outlandish women. Or else Nehemiah would have said, even him did get with outlandish women. No, he said, even him did outlandish women cause him to sin. So now he's giving you a admonition to beware of these strange women. Beware of these women of these other nations. Yeah, you can deal with them. Yeah, you can have them as so-called concubines. I mean, as concubines, not so-called concubines. You can have them as lesser wives. you know, but beware of them, because their mind is not geared towards serving Yahweh Shemel Shah. Well, really, no woman's mind is constantly geared towards serving Yahweh Shemel Shah, but definitely not these heathen women, okay? And they deal with witchcraft and they deal with other things. So that's why the Lord said that these outlandish women caused Solomon to sin. His sin was not getting with the outlandish women. That's not what's being said here. It says in verse 27, shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress against our power in marrying strange wives? You see? So it says, shall we hearken unto you? Shall we follow you to do all this great evil, to raise our children and not speak Hebrew like you, to cause our children to err like you, to not keep certain days or you know, whatever these Israelites was slipping in because they was dealing with these women and fall in love with these women? It says to transgress our power in marrying strange wives. So when they married the strange wives, it caused them to transgress the laws of their power. Otherwise, you're going to have to show us the law. Because the law don't say we can't have heathen women. The law say you can get a heathen woman. When you go to war against a nation, you can grab a couple of them up. This Deuteronomy 21. So obviously, what Nehemiah was doing was giving an exhortation. He was quoting scriptures. He was quoting history. Okay? Trying to get these brothers on the right track. Okay? And for them to snap out of it, you know, falling in love and getting mesmerized and hypnotized, okay, by the heathen women that they were supposed to keep, like I said, on a lesser wife status. It says here in Deuteronomy 21:10, when thou goest forth to war against thine enemy, and the Lord thy power have delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives a beautiful women. So now it's not obviously not talking about us going to war against other Israelites, is it? No. This is dealing with the law when we go to war with our enemies, right? So it says, and the Lord, Deuteronomy, I'm reading it again, Deuteronomy 21, verse 10. When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Lord thy power have delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captives. We defeated our enemies. We slew them. We chained up whoever we need to chain up. Okay. It says verse 11, and thou seest among the captives a beautiful woman. We're going to chain up all the women. We usually kill every man, but we're going to chain up all the women, children, and all the young girls that have not known man. We're gonna chain up all the women and children. It says, and we see a beautiful woman among them. You see a beautiful heathen woman among these heathen captives, and has a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. So it's in the law. The Lord is telling you when you go to war how you can acquire a heathen wife. And you don't always have to acquire her through war. But this is just an example to prove that we are allowed to deal with them. Moses didn't get his through war. Samson didn't get his through war. Samson said, Mom, Dad, go get me her. Solomon didn't get his through war. Solomon had 40 years of peace. It says in Deuteronomy 21 and verse 12, then thou shalt bring her to thine home, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that thou shalt go in unto her and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. So you shave her hair, you cut her nails, you take off the clothing of her people, you put on the clothing of your people. Okay, you give her 30 days to mourn the death of her mother and father that you slew. You know, and then after 30 days you can go in unto her whether she like it or not. It says yeah, that's pretty much it. Now that's what Solomon's sin. Let me go to 1 Kings 11. Solomon's sin was that his wives turned away his heart in his old age. And he also did marry of the nations in Deuteronomy 7 and 3 that were listed as not to marry. Solomon did marry of that nation. 1 Kings 11 and 2. of the nations concerning which Yahweh Shai said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you. For surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. So that's how we know that Solomon did marry of the nations listed in Deuteronomy 7:3. Even though, because it says here in verse 1, but King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. Solomon cleaved unto them in love. So Solomon was falling in love with these women, and that's what caused him to go off. Yeah, that's what I was going to go. Deuteronomy 7. Let me get that real quick. Deuteronomy 7 verse 1. It says, when the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, thy power shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and have cast out many nations before thee. The Hittites, you see, that's one of the nations that's listed that the Lord said don't marry. And that was one of the nations listed in 1 Kings 11 that Solomon married and clave unto in love. So that's why his heart was eventually turned away from them Hittite women. It says, and the Canaanites. But I'm going to read the whole verse because I'm just looking at the verse. It says, and have cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. When Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua thy power shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his sons, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy sons. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. That's what happened with Solomon. So will the anger of the Lord. And what came out of that? That was all a part of the will of Yahweh Shemel Shai, man. Because King Solomon also wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. And he said that he know wisdom and he know folly. He said that he done searched out everything, even the foolish things. So, even the evil things. Solomon searched it all out. Dealing with all those women, I bet he did get the full spectrum. Dealing with all those damn crazy women, you gonna get the left hand. The Apostle Paul said you should have trouble in the flesh. This is Deuteronomy 7:3. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his sons, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of Yahweh Ba'ashem shall be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. So that's what Solomon's sin was. Okay, the fact that he married one of the nations that was listed to not marry, and he fell in love with all of his heathen wives when he wasn't supposed to fall in love with his heathen wives. They were just supposed to be concubines. And so that's how his wives turned away his heart. So now let's go to verse 3, 1 Kings 11:3. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. Why? Because some of those wives was not Israelites. If they were all Israelite wives, they could, an Israelite wife would still turn away your heart. Look at Eve. So I can't even use that example, but that's how you know that it was 700. Out of those 700 wives, some of them was heathen, because it said that his wives turned away his heart, right? And it's talking about the heathen, because they turned his heart away from Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai. It says, verse 4, for it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with Yahweh, his power, as was the heart of his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, which is one of the nations that was listed. If I'm not mistaken, let me go back to Deuteronomy 7. I believe the Zidonians were also listed. Let's see, was it? No, Salaki. Which Zidon, that's Tyre and Zidon, those are Hamitic nations. Those are Canaanites. So it's still the same people. It says after, you got to know that these nations, they went by different names during different time periods. But a lot of them are, these tribes are related. It says, for Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians. So Solomon actually worshiped these gods. It says, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonite. So he worshiped Molech. So Solomon, like it says in Ecclesiastes, Solomon wasn't lying when he said that he went as far left as you can go, but then he came as far right as you can go. It says, and Solomon did evil in the sight of Yahweh and went not fully after Yahweh as did David his father. Then did Solomon build a high place for Shemash, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. So all of the wives of the Hittites, he built them. He built whatever they wanted to do for their worship. He aided them in worshiping these false gods. Of the nations listed in Deuteronomy 7 and 3, which list specific nations that the Lord said not to marry. Okay, you're supposed to keep these women of other nations on a concubine status. So Lord is edifying, giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kodash. Give me the spirit to do this lesson. Kwame Asherallah, Shalom.